Hello everyone, my name is Josh Leclair. I'm a fitness and sport instructor with CFSU Ottawa-Gatineau. I'm just going to take a few moments today to give you some tips and tricks on getting better for the JTF physical fitness screening evaluation. As you know, the JTF test is based on a scoring matrix. So even if you hit the minimum standards, you will not be successful on the overall test. So we're just going to go through a few areas where you can work on improving for each component of the test so that hopefully next time you go and run through it, you will be successful. So the first part of your JTF2 test is the 1.5 mile run with the minimum standard set at 9 minutes and 45 seconds or less. Obviously, it goes without saying that the better you do on the test, the more points you achieve and the better it looks on you overall. One of the things to look at when you are training or preparing for this test is developing a good base. Without getting too scientific with my explanations, the 1.5 mile run is aerobic in nature, but in order to do very well on it, you're going to be pushing yourself probably to your maximum. But whenever we exercise, our body produces a byproduct called lactic acid. Under a certain threshold, our body is able to process this lactic acid without any issue. When we hit a certain intensity, and as we can see here, that red dot labeled LT is our lactate threshold. So up until that point, our body has no issue processing that lactic acid. Once we get past that threshold, our body then can no longer process it fast enough compared to how much our body is producing. So the goal in training, especially for the 1.5 mile run, is to take that lactate threshold and push it further. So as we can see in our second graph, we want to take that blue dot, which was before training, and push it further to the right to the red dot, which is after training. So that as we're exercising, we can maintain a higher intensity because we've now pushed that lactate threshold limit further, and our intensity can be higher for a longer duration. So when we're looking at training, you want to build that base and then work on improving it. So we want to establish a nice aerobic capacity. And again, for everybody, this is going to be different, especially when you're starting off your training. And once you establish that aerobic capacity, you want to work on improving your aerobic power. So essentially, we're looking at improving that engine and then further improving the amount that engine can put out. And when we're looking at trying to improve that aerobic power, basically we're trying to take your limit where you kind of go from an aerobic system to an anaerobic system, and you want to push where that cutoff happens. So by working on your aerobic power, you're kind of training your body to better tolerate that byproduct buildup. And if we look at kind of some examples on being able to work on that aerobic power, I've kind of listed some here. And again, there's a lot of variations to this, as there is with everything. But essentially, you're just looking at trying to make your body uncomfortable and then working on getting your body used to being uncomfortable and pushing that. So as you can see here, I just listed a couple. You're always going to be working at around 80-90%. If you try to do this at 100%, you're not going to get the benefits from this training, and you're just not going to get anywhere. So when we're looking at something like this, take for example, this is kind of interval training in a sense. So take for example 2 minutes of work, 2 minutes of rest, 2 to 3 sets by 4 to 5 reps, and then you're going to rest anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes in between each set. So obviously the amount of rest that someone needs is very individualistic. It's going to be different for everybody. That being said, you want to try to push the envelope here. So when we're looking at developing aerobic power, my recommendation would be doing it with a resistance. So on a stationary bike or an airdyne or assault bike with sleds, you want to be working against something so you actually get the benefit you're trying to establish here. This could in theory be done just running, but you won't get quite the same benefit from it. And then you just work on trying to push that lactate threshold, so that byproduct, further and further to help improve your results on the 1.5 mile run. And another tip too is just improving your overall running technique. That'll come in handy as well when it comes to this portion of the test. Obviously, the more efficient you are as a runner, the easier and faster you will go. So during a running program, I just listed off a couple of examples here just to include into your training program. Obviously, you're going to have base runs where you're just kind of at a steady pace for a set duration. But in order to improve kind of your running tempo, you can do something kind of like tempo training, where your run is designed to be at that lactate threshold for the entire duration. So you're really trying to push your body to tolerate pain. So when you're doing something like the 1.5 mile run on your test, your body can kind of push yourself. Right? So for example, a 1 kilometer warm up, 2 kilometers at that lactate threshold, and again that's going to be different for everybody, and then a 1 kilometer cool down. Another example is something called fartlek training. So it's a base run mixed with intervals of varying distances or durations, kind of halfway through your run. So for example, you would do a 3 kilometer base run, but kind of at the midway point, you would do 10 sets of 1 minute pickups at your threshold pace, followed by 1 minute recoveries, and then you just cycle through that for the 10 sets, and then you continue on with your run for the 3 kilometers at your base pace. So those are just kind of quick tips to help improve that running portion of the JTF test, to help try to improve your engine, your overall base and capacity. And again, you're just looking at, you want to establish your base before you work on the power, and then work on your running technique after that. So when we're looking at the next component of the JTF test, we are looking at the push-ups. Minimum standard is 40 continuous. And with this one, again, it goes without saying, the stronger you are, the easier this test is going to be. Obviously, if you can bench press more weight, in theory, you should be able to do more body weight push-ups as long as you have the muscular endurance to do so. If you're someone that struggles with getting to the 40 push-ups, there are some tricks. Obviously, get stronger on the bench press, but also work at getting better at push-ups. So a good way to do this is you start with incline push-ups. You set a specific number of reps you want to achieve. Let's take, for example, 40. You do 40 at a certain incline, and you work at trying to decrease that incline periodically until you are doing kind of a standard push-up, and then you're achieving that same number of reps. Obviously, it would be smarter to do more than just 40, but that is a good way to help improve on your push-ups for the test. Another important piece would be practice and train doing push-ups with the right technique. Obviously, in the JTF test, as with all the specialty testing, there is a certain protocol that we need to abide by for all the components, but if you don't train doing it that way, come test time, you might have a little bit of a challenge. As well, train and practice doing it at a moderate tempo. So an important thing is, if you're doing it too fast, again, you might run into problems, with the evaluator being able to keep up as well as correct you if you miss reps, or you're just doing it too quick and you're not doing it properly. So it's very, very important to train doing it the right way and at a decent tempo. If you practice that way, it's going to be much easier when it comes to test time. I won't touch too much on the sit-ups. Minimum 40 and 60 seconds. The time doesn't stop. It doesn't have to be continuous. You can take breaks, but obviously it's pretty simple. Practice your sit-ups, get better at them. The fourth component is the pull-ups, and this one is kind of unique. When it comes to the scoring matrix, after your minimum, 1 pull-ups equals 1 point. And I stress this because out of all the components, this is the one where you can make up a lot of ground. If you do really well at pull-ups, you can get a tremendous amount of points. So keep that in mind when you are training for the test. It is a good way to help you out. Obviously, like the push-ups, with the pull-ups, if you get stronger, it'll be easier to do bodyweight pull-ups. As well, if you improve your endurance, it'll be easier to do more reps. If you're someone that struggles achieving 5 pull-ups or more, start with banded pull-ups or something that takes away your full body weight and work towards adding extra weight. So it could go something like a medium resistance band, X number of pull-ups in training, and then you slowly decrease the band until you're doing body weight, and then you can slowly start adding weight to get yourself stronger. Obviously, the stronger you are and you're doing added weight, when it comes to test time and you're doing body weight, in theory, it should feel easier. Another important aspect, and this goes along with the protocol and the technique that we need to abide by, improve your core strength. So the pull-ups are pretty strict in their protocol, and you're not allowed moving around when you're doing them. If you have a weak core, that is going to be very hard to achieve. So the stronger your core is, the better you'll be able to keep your body in the position that it needs to be during the duration of that component. So I can't stress that enough. Improve your core strength. Lastly, again, practice and train with the proper technique and at a moderate tempo. The big thing with the pull-ups is if you're going too fast, it is going to be very, very hard keeping to the proper technique. And as soon as you start getting out of that technique, either the test gets stopped or you're just going to start no repping, and then it's just going to hurt you in the end. And then we come to our last component, the 1 rep max bench press. So when it comes to this one, you might be someone that comes in stronger right off the bat, which is very good for you. And then you might be someone that needs to work on this. When we're looking at overall strength, and I'm not going to get too far into the rabbit hole with this, when we're looking at strength, force equals mass times acceleration. So they're directly related. The more mass you can push, regardless of how fast that goes, you're producing more force, you are stronger. If you have 225 pounds in the bar, regardless of if you're moving slow or not, as long as that acceleration is past 0, you're producing force. As opposed to someone, I can't move that, you're not producing force in theory when it comes to the calculation. So in terms of strength, there's nothing there. And another equation that I want to also bring up, or aspect, is power, which is force times velocity. So when we're looking at power, it's the amount of force you can produce quickly. So those two calculations do feed off each other, and when it comes to this component of the test, both play a key part in it. The stronger you are, the more weight you're going to be able to move. If you're more powerful, it is also going to allow you to move more weight as well, which is going to make this test easier. When you're training, you need to focus at some point only on the concentric or upwards portion of the lift. The test is done using only that portion of the lift. If you don't train for it, it's going to be very hard for you to do well on this component, and come test time, it's going to be a surprise. So a good tip with this is when you're in a squat cage or in a rack, Set the safety bars or the pins just above your chest level. When you set up, rest the bar on the pins or the safety bars and just work on pushing the weight up away from you. That's exactly how the test is going to be done. So if you train that way, it's going to be better for you. One thing I want to touch on when it comes to the power aspect is the power you can produce is largely affected with that eccentric portion that we can achieve. Anytime where our muscles are lengthening, so for example with the bench press, the lowering portion, the power you generate is assisted by that elastic stretch in the muscles during that eccentric portion. So essentially during the test or when you're just working on concentric only, you lose that part of it. So in training, if you work on becoming more powerful, you will be able to overcome that loss of eccentric portion of the lift, and it won't hinder you as much come test time. Again, I can't stress enough, when you're training, practice the concentric only. So thank you for taking the time with me today. I hope that was very helpful for you. I know it might seem like a lot right off the bat, but trust me, all of those tips and tricks will help you in improving your overall fitness and getting you prepared for the test. If you ever need to, reach out to your PSP staff at your respective locations, and they'll be more than happy to help you out with a personalized program to help you attain your goals. If you have any questions today, don't hesitate to reach out. Hopefully everything we went over today will help you with your journey when it comes to being successful on your test. And I wish you all good luck.